Ah, the mighty log. BC is built on these pillars of nature. Even our surplus earns us hundreds of millions of dollars a year when sold to valuable customers like China and Japan. All that extra timber makes up 6% of BC's annual forest product exports and takes the hard work of longshoremen to get its journey started. Welcome to the family. Over the next 18 minutes, we'll show you what it looks like to be a longshoreman loading logs at the docks. So slip on a life vest, slap on a hard hat, and lace up your cork boots. It's time to learn how to work logs in BC. Got your gear on? Good, let's go. Logs are loaded up and down the BC coast. Safe operation requires a strong chain of partners, so the ILWU supplies the muscle, and Tidal Transport handles loading. Western Stevedoring and Empire Grain Stevedoring are Tidal's main stevedoring contractors. The BCMEA rounds out this all-star lineup, providing training and other services to ensure BC log ports run as smooth as a debarked tree. So when it comes to loading logs, this is how it works. Logs can be loaded by land or by sea. If we're talking water, then we need a tugboat to bring them into position. This is when you, the longshoreman, see your first taste of action. Connect the bundles to the crane. Bundles are then lifted onto the ship and lowered into the holds. When the holds are full, hatches come down, stanchions stretch to the sky, and logs get cozied up on a cruise ship that ain't got no buffet. Wait, what? It's hard to imagine on a morning like this, but once the ship hits sea, it can undergo severe pitching and rolling, like a homesick sailor. So logs on deck are secured in 2 steps. First with hog lashing, and later with top lashing. The ship is then roll tested to determine its stability, and a wooden catwalk is constructed forward to aft, allowing crew access to the bow of the vessel. Now take a deep breath, and let's dive into the deep knowledge pool your experienced teammates swim in.
My name's Tom. I've been on the waterfront for just over 10 years now.
My name's Jessica. I started working on the waterfront in 2003.
Ah, the longshoreman. The family you didn't know you needed. Let's meet your new brothers and sisters as they prepare you for your first day on the dock.
My name's Nick. I've been here I'm on my 13th year now. I started very young.
Hi, my name's Jamie. I've been on the waterfront just over 10 years.
My name's Steve. I've been on the waterfront for about 10 years now. I do all aspects of the job. What do you want to do next?
My first 10 years I spent mostly working on logs. It was my favorite job. It was a little intimidating at first. It was physically hard. It took a little bit of time for me to get the right technique and to build up the strength that I needed to do the job.
When I started out young, and the job was very, very overwhelming at the beginning. But it's like a family around here. Everybody will take you under your wing and help you along the way, and it's amazing what you can learn in a short period of time.
Before each shift, the foreman will provide workers with the toolbox talk. It's a conversation that includes activities of the day, associated hazards, and how to work safely.
Not a race here, let's look out for each other. We're pretty low right now, but as we get higher, of course, we're in the corners pulling slings. They get caught up and come flying out of the hatch. Let's be aware of that.
The toolbox talk is your chance to ask any questions and let the foreman know it's your first day on the job. As a longshoreman, you work outside, in all weather conditions. Lucky you. To endure this, you've got to be geared up with good stuff. Workers need steel-toe boots, a properly fitted hard hat, high-vis vest, a PFD, and hand protection. We recommend gloves. Oh, and cork boots. You'll need these if you want your feet to have grip on the logs. When boarding the ship, gangways all have different weight requirements, and just like the freeway, they can get jammed up at either end of a shift. Do your part. Keep it to 4 people at a time.
So first thing you want to do before you board the vessel is inspect your gangway. As you can see, the save-all net is not properly secured, and if you were to go up the gangway and fall through, you'd go straight into the water. As you walk along, you want to check your anchor points on your railings. Make sure the railings are secure, make sure the hinges and the pins are properly in place. And then you want to look at your working load. Even though it says 14 persons, our industry standard is no more than 4 people max, and you go up the gangway evenly spaced.
The ship is considered a PPE zone. This means all your personal protective equipment is required beyond this point. Going up or down the gangway or ladders, you must use the handrails and at least 3 points of contact at all times. If you can't decide which points to contact, try 2 feet and a hand to start. It's a classic stability move.
Aboard every vessel, near the top of the gangway, you're going to find our emergency rescue equipment. This will consist of a PV, a rescue saw, and a set of chokers. All of this is only to be used for emergency purposes.
If it's your first time on a ship, find the first aid sign and figure out where the safety room is.
One of the first things you're going to want to do when you come aboard a vessel is find out the location of the first aid. Every vessel will have a different location, so it's important that you find the sign and know how to get there.
I went down to the boom, was my first day on the job. Little intimidating.
First day going down onto the logs, though, that was a real intimidating day because you're going down a really steep ladder, you're wearing cork boots, you could slip in at any time.
There's a lot of slipping and tripping hazards on the logs. Myself, I've fallen into the water many times. Loose pieces of bark, a little piece of banding sticking up. There's lots of different things to trip on that you need to be aware of.
So as you can see, when you're walking the walking sticks, there's a number of tripping hazards. I've seen guys rushing for brake where they stick their foot right in the boom chain hole, they stick their foot right in the cable, and you go down really fast.
Thankfully, working the boom is straightforward. The tug brings the boom alongside. You tie it to the ship, trapping the log so the suckers can't escape. Workers then wrangle the bundles into position for the signal person to guide the crane head to the bundles. Then you take the slings and lasso those logs like the rodeo star you always dreamed you could be.
And then I'll continue around the end of the bundle, getting the sling around all the butts of the logs. Once you're around the corner, you're gonna hit the reset, hear the click, wait for it to drop, put the knob in the holder and wait for the click. Take a step back, look at your partner, make sure the slings are evenly spaced so the load comes up level. After they take up the slack, safely step off the bundle, find a safe pass, and get out as far away as you can.
Pro tip.
So after you get the sling around the logs, when you're stepping back with your sling to make sure it's level, always look where you're stepping. You gotta watch for tails sticking up that can jab in your foot or your leg. Or if your foot hits the outside where it's tight, your foot will slide right off. So always make sure you take a look at everywhere you step.
Once the bundle has been attached and workers have moved to a safe distance, the signal person will direct the crane driver to begin lifting the load.
So we just took the weight, she gave me the all clear symbol. All the boom in are out of the way, safe to lift the load.
You may have noticed that steel is not transparent, and it's also hard to see through. So the way to get around the crane driver not being able to see boom workers is to rely on the signal person. This person directs the crane driver in areas the driver can't see.
Just watching my signal person right now. As you can see, I cannot see the guys on the boom or the load. You have lots of blind spots on each side that you always want to be looking for, and as a hold person or a signal person, you want to make sure that you stay out of those blind spots.
As logs are hoisted out of the water and onto the ship, you never want to turn your back to the bundle. Logs have been known to escape, and when they do, it's like an avalanche of logs.
So when loading logs, we load what we call buckskins, and they're logs without bark, and they can be very slippery. Film like this on the logs, green or black, creates an extremely slippery surface, and even the slightest angle on the log boom can cause them to slide out.
But all it takes is for one log to come loose and the whole bundle can actually come shooting out of the sling.
As we were walking away from the bundle and we thought we were clear, a log started to slide. It caused a chain reaction. All the logs slid out of the bundles and came very close to hitting 2 of the guys and landed on the sticks and actually knocked the guy in the water.
Falling into the water is always a possibility, even for pros like these. So packing a change of clothes is definitely a good idea. You never know when you'll need them. For the next leg of the journey, the mighty log makes its way deep inside the ship's hold. When the crane driver has created a full pass of a complete floor, the longshoremen enter the hold to cut bundles and mark off different log sections. But before they do, they must ensure their co-workers and crane driver know they're heading down.
Always before entering a cargo hold, the first thing you want to do is inspect your hatch cover and ensure that your pins are in place and in the locking position. Then you always want to double check that you're going down the correct cargo hold. You want to double check your number and inspect your ladder rungs for any wear or damage.
An important pro tip about ladders? Don't look up, because falling debris is a sniper, and its target is always one spot: your eyes. As logs get hoisted into the hold, workers then have to cut the strap around the bundles.
So when you're cutting a floor in the cargo hold, you always want to start from the wall and work your way back to ensure that you're always standing on uncut bundles to create a solid platform. Before you cut every bundle, you want to take a look at your surroundings and see if there's any holes the logs may fall into to give yourself a good prediction of how the logs are going to roll. When you put the cutters on the wire, you want to have the smallest tail you can on this side to avoid any kind of sharp metal objects rebounding back at you.
Once the bands have been cut, logs then need to be marked for different destinations or species. You do this using different colored rope, spray paint, and sometimes snow fencing. Once the hold is full, we say goodnight to those logs and leave them in the dark. As the log stack on the deck rises, it needs to be restrained with hog lashing. These intermediate wires are left loose, but will tighten as more logs get loaded on top. Danger alert! Hog lashing and top lashing can take workers to the edge. So suit up and stay alive. A safety harness today means no orphans tonight.
So we have a red control line 2 meters from the edge of the ship. That's a control zone that you can't go out of unless you got full rest gear on.
If you don't like the safety line or feel you don't need a harness, imagine the alternative: racing in a red and white cube van while strapped to a rolling bed. The soundtrack? Sirens in my head. Pro tip:
After a hog lash, when you're loading on top of your first floor of the wire, you always want to be careful of where you're standing when the winchman lands the load down, because the wire will move and it will tighten up on you.
In addition to hog lashing that can shift underfoot, now's a good time to mention those unruly flying slings.
You want to give yourself a very safe distance from the slings as he pulls them out. When they dismount from underneath the logs, they can be very unpredictable and you can never be far enough away.
Stray dogs need help finding a home, and so do stray logs. When a log refuses to lie flat, it needs to be picked up and laid out. We call this cherry picking. Once that log falls in line, it's time to lock down the block with the overlash. In overlashing, cables are connected to pulleys, with chains laid over top. One final twist of the turnbuckle and the crash, bash, and lash is complete. With the timber sleeping like a swaddled baby, it's time to pick up the hammer. A catwalk must be constructed, but this ain't for strutting that high-vis safety vest. It's to create access to both ends of the ship so crew can inspect the load while at sea.
Okay, after the completion of the lashing is done, we construct a wooden catwalk from one end of the ship to the other to provide the crew with a safe platform to walk on at sea so they can tighten down lashing gear and check other components on the ship as they go.
Now, another pro tip.
After completing a section and moving on, 2 people stayed back to put the handrails on, and as we walked away, I heard a crack to turn around and see their eyes wide open as they disappeared into the logs. They only had 1 nail in the leg. It may have held the person that was building it at the time, but you have to make sure that you build it enough for everybody else to walk on it as well. 1 nail is not enough.
All right, you're just about to rip through the finish line. But before you break the tape, let's pass you a few more tips. Pro tips.
Anytime you're working on the waterfront, the weather can change and you need to bring your rain gear. you're not going to get to go home. You're going to have to stay at work all day.
Rain around here is as common as potholes in February, but your job demands you use 2 hands. So unless you can attach an umbrella to a drone, well, this brings us to the first of our 2 tips that start with D. Number 1, dress. You can either look like this guy or this guy. Second D is distractions. They're all around us, so it's vital we stay on danger watch. Be a second set of eyes for your teammates, and never walk under a moving crane load. Third D is the deck. It's covered in tripping hazards, so keep your head up and your eyes down.
Sometimes when you come on a ship, it might not be the first day, the second day, or the third day, but there'll be rope and stuff, there'll be bark, and there are other tripping hazards on the deck that you need to worry about. Clean it up if you can, make the best of what you got.
Fourth D is down, way down.
Whenever you're doing deck loading, you're gonna come across holes, voids, and gaps, sometimes large holes like this. You always wanna watch your footing, try and walk around if you can, check for loose bark, and always inform your partners behind you that there's a hole coming up.
The fifth D is the slipping.
Steel on steel can be very slippery. When you're wearing your cork boots on deck, take extra caution with every step.
Sometimes you're leaving the ship and that this is the route you have to take. And there's all these ropes that you need to try to clear out of your way for you and the fellow workers that are behind you, so there's no slips, trips, and falls.
That was the sixth D. Things that can potentially be in your way all the time.
As you saw, I was using the hand-over-hand method. I use that method so that I don't get any jaggers into my hand. If you were sliding your hand along here, these things would cut your hand open just like a knife. Usually this thing will have 1 or 2 jaggers and you can remove them and reuse it. But a lot of times it gets to the point where you just can't fix it and you can't use it anymore.
The jaggers on slings eventually become unrepairable. Slings suffering from old age must be taken out of service and spray painted so people know not to use them. And finally, the last of our 2 Ds, donuts. They're good and bad. Well, it's the end of the overview, but the journey is about to begin. Now you know what a specialized skill log loading is. Worldwide, there are only a small group who do this kind of work, and you've just joined them. It might seem intimidating, but learn to do it safely and soon you'll be doing work you can be proud of. Because at the end of the day, this is what it's all about, going home to our family. Well, our other family.